Hi everyone, welcome back. Our next presentation is from Capstone's very own Kevin Jones, Director of Sales and Marketing, and Steve Lake, Software Development Manager. They're going to share dataPARC's product development plan with us.
Thank you all for joining us for this session. Today we're going to talk about the dataPARC roadmap and future visions. This will be our chance to share with you what we have planned from the product perspective in the short, medium, and long term. My name is Kevin Jones. I'm with the dataPARC Sales and Marketing Group. I'm joined by my colleague, Steve Lake.
Good morning. I'm Steve Lake. I'm the dataPARC Technology Director.
Good. Well, thanks, Steve. So there's three things that we're going to talk to you and share with you today. First, an update on our product release guidance. So kind of share where we are in really the short term with the product perspective. Next, we're going to introduce kind of some new concepts we have around our themes. So this is kind of an easy way we feel to communicate the features and capabilities that we have planned in these kind of cohesive themes. So we'll give you more background and information on what those themes are, and then we'll do a deep dive of those themes and really get into what the vision for those themes are and give you that short, medium, and long-term perspective. So now I'm going to hand it over to Steve and talk a little bit about the product release guidance.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so I'll give a quick overview of where we're at now. Our current goal is to provide 1 to 2 major releases each year, with a major release being, say, 7.0 going to 7.1, and then we'll continue with point releases in between, so 7.0.1.3 to 7.0.1.4, for example. And as far as our roadmap goes, we're looking to provide guidance for the next major release as far as what features we're definitely planning on including. And then going on beyond the next major release, which today we'll be talking about 7.2, will be a bit more of a gray area. We know what we want to focus on, but our requirements are constantly changing, either technology changes or new requests coming in from our customers. So as far as where we're at right now, currently we have 7.0.1.4 as our production release that just came out, and we're actively beta testing 7.1 with a Q4 public release date. So like I said, it's currently in beta testing, and if you're interested in taking a look at where it's at right now before it goes public, get in touch with us and we can get you hooked up with that. So today we'll be focusing on primarily the 7.2 major release date for later next year. All right, so I'll hand it back to Kevin, who will give a quick overview of the dataPARC themes that make up our roadmap.
Okay, hey, thanks, Steve. So as I mentioned, this idea of themes is a new concept for us, but I think will really help communicate where we're going and kind of how we're getting there. So we've got 6 major themes that we've broken our roadmap into, and we'll talk a little about those. So the first is an improved user experience. It's no, I guess, accident this is the #1 theme we have here. It's always been very important to us to provide the most intuitive, easiest to use product that we can to our customers. And so this theme is our attempt to continue to deliver that ease of use experience. Next is the analytics theme. So that's really the workhorse part of the dataPARC platform to help you, solve your problems easily and effectively. This, from our perspective, really gets into the idea of exploratory analytics. So how can we help you continue to troubleshoot, solve problems in one sitting, and have the tools to answer the questions as you're asking them. So kind of keeping up with the speed of thought as you're asking questions of the data. This also gets into the idea of predictive analytics, so helping you model data, provide additional insights into your data through some advanced modeling capabilities. The third area is our historian. So we've always had an optional time series, process level historian. So this theme will incorporate the improvements to that. We have a whole dedicated presentation tomorrow that will cover this, but I just want to make sure we understood this theme is part of our core vision. The fourth one is our web platform. So this really gets into the HTML5 browser-based user experience that we want to continue to provide. We've always had a browser-based version through, we call it Park Mobile, And so this is continuing to make that platform more feature complete. So give you a vision as to where we're going with that. The fifth is our manufacturing applications team. This really encompasses all of the various building blocks that we have within dataPARC. So things like our alarm server, things like our task scheduler, so the ability to give notifications. We've always been able to bundle those together to create things like a downtime tracking application, or the ability to have an environmental monitoring report sent out automatically when a certain condition occurs in the plant. So it's our vision to continue to evolve these building blocks. And then the sixth and finally is our security and system administration. So how do we continue to provide the highest level of data security, as well as a product that's easy to configure and administer from a systems perspective. So within these themes, what we're going to share today is really our short term, which, as Steve mentioned, is going to include the 7.1, which is our version coming out here later this year, as well as the 7.2 version. And then our medium term, which are things that we know we want to do. We're just not sure which version they're going to go into yet, but that's going to be kind of coming in subsequent releases after 7.2. And then the longer term vision. So the areas we know we want to get to, but we still need to do some additional research, understand how urgent those are to our customers, and see how big they are and exactly how we want to solve them. Just one note, this roadmap is not 100% inclusive. So there will be features and capabilities included in these releases that are not captured here. This is really just giving you a sense of some of the major items that we'll be delivering. So let's go ahead and get started here with the themes. So the first one, as we said, is the user experience. And here we're going to highlight some of the capabilities that are going to be part of 7.1. So these are in beta, these are close to being ready, so we can share a lot of information about what they are, what they look like. The first one here is our control chart zoning. So we've always had the ability to conditionally format on zones 1, 2, and 3 from an SPC perspective, but now we're adding that ability to, on the trend, color those zones. And it's fully configurable, so you can see here we've got a kind of a high contrast example as well as a low contrast example here. So you have complete control over what color those different zones are. Another feature coming in 7.1 is the ability to highlight the active tag. As you see here in the tag info grid, we click on a tag, in case the pink one, and it makes it more prominent on the trend down below. Another example in the user experience, this will really resonate with those of you who've built a lot of saved scripted calc tags. So before, it could be a little bit cumbersome to scroll through the list and find the one that you're interested in to either you add it to a trend or edit it. Now we've added our common big blue search bar, so you can easily search and filter the list of your saved scripted calc tags and make it easier to find those. And then we get into kind of where we're going with the 7.2 and beyond. So in the short term, one of the features we have planned for 7.2 is the ability to improve our XY chart. And this one's, we think, certainly applicable to the idea of pump curves. So if you have an XY plot with the pressure and flow of a pump, we can have a pump curve overlay there and be able to see in real time where that process is versus the theoretical pump curves. Then going forward in the future, one that I'm really excited about is the idea within a trend to change the individual box trend display types to different display types. So if you can imagine a 3x3 box trend that normally would have 9 individual box trends, well, now we can switch those box trends to something like an XY or a histogram. So it gives us the ability to almost have widgets that we can control inside of the frame of our normal trend display and easily build a mashup of different display types without having to go to the graphic designer. And there's some other areas that we have planned in the future with the graphic designer is just simply making it easier to use and build. So we won't share all of details on all of these. We'll leave some of that for Q&A, but just highlight a few of the key areas that we see in the future roadmap here. And the next theme So you mentioned is analytics. So here we've got a couple of videos. And the first one that I want to talk about is what we call our advanced run filter. And so what this is really trying to help us with is extending what we normally had with our grade run filters and be able to apply multiple filter criteria. So with data on the right is the data I want to filter, data on the left is the criteria I want to use. We can now go into our run browser and we can see that capability to filter on now multiple criteria. So now we have that criteria grid, and here we see the product I'm making, the speed that I'm running, and good quality. So I can filter on all three of those parameters, and by filtering the data on the right, I can now exclude data when those conditions aren't true. And just like before, in this case, we're just filtering the data, so it just disappears when the criteria is not true. But we can go back to our normal run dividers that you may be used to in Run Browser, and we can see the yellow vertical lines that represent breaks when that condition is not true. And we can also hide these dividers. So a variety of ways to kind of easily use multiple filter criteria when trying to look at the data that's interesting to you. So I think there are a number of applications this is going to be very useful in. Another example in analytics side for in 7.1 is FFT. So we've always had the ability with FFT on a single trend to look at the frequency of the data. So this is the fast Fourier transform. But now what we're doing is really extending the capabilities that we've always had with our trend tool to FFT. So in this case, we can pivot all 4 box trends to FFT. We can change on the x-axis, the length of periods. So these are the different frequency periods we want to look at. So we started at 30 minutes, now we go to 3 hours. And now we're going to use the example of a smart mouse. So we see smart mouse across all 4 box trends. And we'll also look at multiple smart mouse, so we can see that across all 4 box trends. One thing that's not shown in this video, but will be available when 7.1 is released, is zoom. So the classic zoom, sync, smart mouse to try to look at, do I have frequency that's similar across my process, and try to see if certain cycles are impacting downstream processes. Kind of last example I'll show in the analytics space for 7.1 is our smart mouse pinning. So what this does is lets us take the smart mouse that you're very familiar with as you're moving across the time axis, and hold down the shift key and click your mouse, and it'll be pinned now to the trend. So you can see the time and value where all these pins are. So we can use multiple pins to really annotate the display, for sharing purposes or for your own analysis purposes. So a number of ways we can now help you with this smart mouse pinning. Then looking beyond to the next major release of 7.2 and in the future, some of the things we have planned. One is this idea of a tag switch and formula wizard. So where this is really helpful is normally you'd have to, up in the tag info grid, type in /AVG equals 30M to do a 30-minute average. That requires you to know what the switches are and type them in correctly. Well, now we'll have a wizard that exposes all of these to build more dynamically. Another thing that's going to be pretty interesting is really to export to third-party applications. So things like Jump and Minitab, so kind of your statistical analysis tools. So kind of an extension of what we've always had in the right-click, export to Excel. Now we'll have the ability to right-click and format and export to some of these other applications. So it kind of begins our journey into more and more links into external systems. We'll also improve some of our batch analysis, as well as the ability with our asset model to query the asset model based upon certain conditions. So you can say, back to our pump example, show me all pumps that I have configured that have an efficiency over the last day above a certain range or below a certain range. So it lets you filter all these assets based upon certain criteria. And then as you can see in the medium term and long term. We also have some additional capabilities around getting data into third-party applications. So as I mentioned, kind of a theme you're going to see more of. And then the third one is the historian. As I mentioned, we'll have a full, detailed presentation that Steve and Aaron Mosier will cover. Just wanted to, again, make sure that one's covered. So that concludes the three that I'm going to talk about. Steve, it's all yours now.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Aaron Mosier and I will have a talk tomorrow about the historian, so we're looking forward to covering everything we've been working on there. So going ahead, I'll cover the web platform theme. So like Kevin mentioned, this is our HTML5 compatible web application for viewing Park View displays. You guys know it as Park Mobile, which originally it started geared more towards viewing on mobile devices, but more and more we're running it in desktop environments, and there's a bit of a gap right now in functionality compared to Park Mobile, what we can do in the browser versus our full Park View desktop application. So in 7.1, we're trying to bridge some of that gap by adding new user interactions into the displays. So we've got a quick video I'll play and demonstrate some of the new features. So one of the first things is we now support zoom in Park Mobile, so you can just click and drag into a region on a trend just like you would in the full Park View client, and then zoom into that. And we now have a right-click context menu we're showing here where you can sync displays. So we just change that one to 8 hours, sync it. All the other displays will go to that. You can also now click on the combo box for the time span or the date labels to set a new time for the overall trend and then proceed to sync those. And then auto sync behaves just like in the trend view. Enable that and then change the time span on a trend. All the other trends in that display will sync to it automatically. And quick statistics as well, so you can turn that on or off for any given trend via the new right-click context menu. So shifting over to a graphic, we have the context menu there where you can right-click on a element in the graphic and open up a trend. And here we now have got that tag and a trend, and it'll have the same functionality as far as zooming and changing time ranges. So I think that covers it for this video. So yeah, if there's any other functionality that people want in Park Mobile, we're interested in talking to customers on what you guys are using it for and what you think we should be focusing on next. Here's an outline of what we're planning for in 7.2. Performance improvements is something we're focusing on 7.1 and plan to improve further in 7.2. That would be things like loading displays, trying to reduce the time you have to wait to see them, and then also display interactions. Like if you sync one trend, we want to make it snap as fast as possible onto all the other trends with minimal delay. Tag browsers, a big ticket item. We're looking at building a fully browser compatible tag browser. So you'd be able to filter tags in the browser like you would with the full Park View tag browser. And then a big part of that would be drag and drop support as well. So once we've got a tag browser, we want to be able to then drag and drop tags from that tag browser onto trends, as well as have drag and drop support from, say, a graphic onto a trend or from a trend to another trend, just like you can do in the full client. And Smart Mouse as well, so have the right-click context menu to turn on Smart Mouse to see the current values at whatever point in time. Beyond 7.2, we're looking at supporting other display types, because trends and graphics are the primary displays we support right now. You can kind of view other display types if you embed them inside of graphics, but we'd like to natively support, say, histogram or centerline in Park Mobile. Further into the future would be a mobile-based data entry, a fully HTML-based data entry system that could be run on either desktop or mobile devices, as well as the Run browser. Since a lot of our other display types are pretty integrated with a Run browser, we would need a web-based version of that. Moving right along, the next theme was manufacturing applications. So this one covers a lot of the interactions and server applications. We've got an example here of a new feature in 7.1 where you can now configure an alarm in the alarm server to trigger a Park task workflow based off of certain events. So this diagram here shows the data flow coming from your historian into an alarm that's processed by the alarm server, and then that triggers some Park task workflow that could say send an email or report or print something, send something to a printer. And here's a little screenshot of what that actually looks like. So in the new 7.1 alarm config, there'll be a Park task workflow tab where you can go and set specific templates that are tied to triggers. This example is showing a alarm workflow that would trigger when the alarm is ended, and then into the workflow it would pass the tag value, the alarm event comment, and then the alarm end time. And then Park task, the workflow would take that and do whatever you've programmed it to do. So going ahead on future things that we're planning for this particular theme, we're planning on re-adding support for master tags. That was something that existed in 5.6, and we removed in 7.0, thinking that we could handle all of that functionality in the asset model. But it turns out master tags have a role to play, especially with MDEs, where you can define one MDE and then use that on multiple process areas with it automatically generating tags for each of them. So we're planning on re-adding the master tag editor that's primarily used for defining limits, controlling how limits are read on those tags. Beyond 7.2, logbook drag and drop. This would be if you had logbook, you could drag an area out onto a trend and see all of the entries on that, like a text tag. That one can already be accomplished via custom SQL templates and a SQL source, but we want to just simplify the configuration there and have that as built-in functionality. A couple others further out in the future would be having the alarm server be able to read a fault code from a PLC tag and auto assign that to alarms when they happen. So if you already have some other system that's got that, you could then map those to reasons in our system and have them automatically filled out and not have to wait on an operator to do that. A couple other things we don't need to look at too much detail, but it's a notification scheduling for having the alarm server restrict the hours that it might send out emails to people to business hours. And then also expanding the alarm server engine to handle larger number of tags. I know we have some customers with thousands of alarm tags, and we want to make sure that we're able to continue scaling up. So the last theme was security and system administration. So this would cover everything in our security console and just system administration in general. A couple things that we've got in 7.1. In 7.0, we started adding support for pools of UA servers as well as failover servers, where if you start the client up, it can automatically pick a single server out of all the available servers or fail over between servers if one server wasn't available when you started it. In 7.0, though, if you connected to a UA server initially and then that server went down for whatever reason, you would have to restart the client to then connect to another one. 7.1, we've extended that to automatically fail over to other servers in the failover pool without having to restart the server or the client. Improved authorization performance. In 7.0, we added support for tag-based security, which means we have to do a lot more authorization checks. And we ran into some cases where either large numbers of tags or with Active Directory in particular, if you have a lot of latency on your network, the authentication of users could slow down overall performance compared to the same thing in 5.6. So we spent a fair bit of time adding some optimization to how we authenticate both against our own security database as well as Active Directory to hopefully minimize that performance hit. As well as general reliability updates. We've been deploying 7.0 to more and more sites and finding rubbing points along the way. So we've been trying to smooth those out and get the overall system more stable and performant. One other thing in 7.1 that we're now supporting is asset tags as remote tags. So previously the asset model was restricted to only using or pointing to tags that existed in the same PARC-view database. In 7.1, we're extending that so that any tag available in PARC-view can be bound to an asset. Then 7.2 and beyond, one of our big focuses is going to be building web-based configuration and management tools. Right now, most of our server applications have a UI for either monitoring what's going on or configuring it, which is becoming more and more of a challenge with session 0 being locked down and them harder to get to. So we're looking at building out web applications that will tie everything into a single portal, so you can view all of the server applications running in a facility via the web browser and configure and monitor them. I'll touch a couple of these other ones going ahead. So beyond 7.2, PARC security profile templates. That's for customers that are running multiple configuration databases inside a single security database. So multiple sites with one security database. Right now, each of those profiles needs to be configured independently. So you can't say that user A is an admin in all sites. You have to individually configure them as an admin or as configure the group that they belong to. We're looking at adding a template that you can say this user or group has whatever roles in all of the profiles, and then that would be automatically inherited. So simplify configuration on that end. And then continuing the web configuration theme would be also extending that to system configuration. So right now in the PARC client, you have to go into system configuration to see things like locations and sources. We want to pull that out into a web application so that you can define common system properties without having to open PARC view or even necessarily having that client installed. I think that's it. So take questions and answers.
Good. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, certainly look forward to any Q&A that may come up.
All right. Well, that was good, Steve. So just a note to everybody, we do have a session coming up at 10:20 with Kevin Clark. So with back-to-back, we don't have a lot of time for questions, but we do have a few. We'll get to those we can, and those we can't, we'll certainly send out an email and make sure we get all your questions answered. So let's see what we have here. So the first question coming is around browser compatibility with PARC Mobile. Is there a plan for which browser those will support? And specifically, the question's been asked around Edge.
Yeah, so anything that supports HTML5 should work. That includes the old version of Edge and the new Chromium-based one, Chrome as well, Safari. Pretty much any major browser out there should run PARC Mobile fine.
Okay, good. And then a question around data entry through PARC Mobile. I think you'd said there that's something that we're looking at in the future. We'd love to have a data entry module in PARC Mobile, but that's something that will be coming out in later versions.
Yeah, that's on our current research list, so looking into it currently.
Good. So yeah, there are a few more questions. We'll make sure we get those answered, but at this point, let's get back out into the lobby and join the session with Kevin Clark, talking about our dataPARC support, and that update is going to start here at 10:20. So thank you everybody for joining us. We packed a lot of information there in a half an hour, and if you do have any other questions, please let us know. Contact your main Capstone account person, and we'll make sure we get those taken care of. So, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.